Hello. Chainsaw Man chapter 195 came out today, and as of this chapter, we are officially surpassed part 1's number of chapters. We are at 98 chapters for part 2, whereas part 1 had 97 chapters. So, just a quick fun fact there, but anyways, let's quickly get into the summarization of the chapter. So Asa threatens Denji to kill her, or she will shoot him, because she doesn't want Yoru to use her body for nefarious purposes. According to Asa, Yoru has something planned that is worse than the Death Devil's arrival. And even if they defeat the Death Devil, it won't solve anything. So Asa is refusing to say what that plan is specifically. It's so terrible that it sickens her to even say it out loud. Denji was resistant a little bit, but then he tried to smack her over the head with a chair by surprise. But Asa is not ready to die just yet. So she asks for a bit more time to mentally prepare herself. And Denji responds by saying that, you're never ready to die. Even he isn't, and he's practically immortal. And it's another reminder of the physical suffering Denji go through when he transforms and fights. And Denji sits down with Asa, and this is probably my favorite part of the chapter, the next page or so, because it's a bit of a callback to when Denji sat with Kobeni. But the difference here when Denji sat with Kobeni was that the two of them were more so kind of feeling sorry for themselves. They were fearing for their own lives and kind of resenting what their lives came to be. So Kobeni was scared. She was lamenting that she's going to die, whereas Denji was crying about being used, having no freedom, having no autonomy all his life. Whereas in this case, Denji is facing Asa because his goal here is to comfort her and to relate to her and to make her feel better. So I think that's a neat little parallel here. So Denji tries to distract her by having Asa continuing what Yoru was doing, which is to shoot at the already destroyed buildings. And their scene ends with Asa in this panel. And I really like this frame here in that you see Asa through the bars of the rooftop, but in a sense it looks like Asa is behind the bars of a prison, and that she is a prisoner to her own body. So, solid scene. I'm snapping my fingers. Excellent. Anyways, we cut back to the school festival, and there is apparently a transfer student, which this teacher is introducing to the class. And he also makes a comment that the school festival is the city is pressuring their school to hold a festival, probably for relief purposes, because the city is very messed up right now. So presumably to raise morale. And this is something that also bothered me last week about the timeline. Because in Japanese schools, the cultural festival is usually held from around October to November, one of the 2 months. It's usually held at near the end of the year, right before winter break. So in this case, having the school cultural festival in July is also a bit of a doesn't really reflect the timeline of the Japanese calendar. But this explanation it makes sense. So I'm glad that's there. But anyways, the transfer student is very nervous and fidgety, and then she tells the class that she is here to save them. So this girl is probably at least a horseman of the apocalypse. Most likely the Death Devil because of her spiral eyes and her pale hair. In the Bible, the Death Devil is said to have a pale horse. So that's reflective in her appearance, but again, the horsewomen of the series don't really have colors that reflect their biblical counterparts, because the horseman of conquest is supposed to be white, Makima is red, and the horseman of war is supposed to be red, and Yoru is black, or she has black hair. And Famine's supposed to be black. She has, I don't even know what color her hair is. She has like purple hair or something. So in a way, I guess you can say that they're switching colors. Like the hair color of the horsewoman maybe foreshadows the next horsewoman to come, potentially. Kind of a stretch, but so assuming that this is the Death Devil, what does she mean that she is going to save them? Save, presumably, humanity. The first interpretation is that she could be wanting to save humans from herself, and that she is warning humanity of her arrival, and then begging for someone to stop her, like how Asa was doing earlier this chapter. Or the more likely option is that she is trying to convince humanity to die for her, because dying for humans will be a better fate than whatever is going to happen next. So Yoru has something planned. Apparently it's worse than death. So that's probably it. But there are a couple other possibilities. As we talked about pretty often, there were 4 other conclusions to the end of lives. If that's, who's to say there are not more possibilities? So if there's also the Aging Devils revelation that humans sometimes turn into trees when they live long enough. So there might be other terrible fate that awaits humans that is about to be revealed to us in a short amount of time, which the supposed Death Devil here is trying to prevent. So a bit of a 180 from what we were led to believe so far, in that the Death Devil's intention is actually pretty noble, whereas Yoru and Fami's intent are now a bit more nefarious, even more so than before. And speaking of Fami, last chapter she told Yoshida and Fumiko that she is going to attend her school's festival for fun. But this chapter, now that we know the Death Devil is present in the school, perhaps she was lying to the two of them, and she actually wants to do whatever with the Death Devil. But, yes, that's the end of the chapter for now. Let's see. Okay, that's a lot of comments. I got a list of comments. Apologies in advance. Asa said Yoru wants something worse than human extinction back when she declared she would make Chainsaw Man throw up nukes. So her goal might be to delete all life. Humans, cats, other animals. Another thing that is worse than... Well, I don't know if, deletion of life is worse than death as a whole. But let me finish reading the rest. Another thing that is worse than extinction is servitude, meaning Yoru might want to enslave humanity to lose their will and be forever war type world. She could make humans fight for her pleasure is a possibility. A girl at the end said she is going to save the world. She could be death, since death considers erasure as salvation. Yes. Reminds me of the falling devil. Asa goes back to her default thinking, herself as weak and wanting to be deleted. Yoru is the opposite, complete self-confidence and want to destroy others. We go back to City Mouse versus Country Mouse scenario. Asa is the country mouse of taking no risk and not thinking high of herself. Yoru too has... Oh, I can't read. Yoru has too much confidence and want to control everything. Okay. Bucky shows up on the part 2 art, so he's most likely come back to the final arc. I mean, yeah, I do think Bucky's gonna show up at some point. Bucky has been the, I guess, the visual metaphor for Asa's guilt for a good part of part 2. So, yeah, I think Bucky's gonna come back at some point. It is the school arc, so it makes sense to end in the festival. Yes, the arc is called the Academy arc, after all. So, one thing I guess I'm a bit not too happy about is that Denji and Asa don't really do much in a arc called the Academy arc. Like, they're not doing school stuff. But I kind of get why they are currently separated from probably the Death Devil, because if they meet her, she could just explain what it is that is so terrible that's about to happen, and that would get rid of the misunderstanding or the lack of info that Denji has, because Asa is withholding info from Denji at the moment. She is refusing to tell him what Yoru plans on doing, and I'm not really a fan of that either. I don't like the whole misunderstanding tropes. I think characters should just say, if they have like important information, just say it. And I would prefer if she tells Denji what's up, and then Denji makes a decision on whether he wants to stop or not stop Yoru. But yeah, anyways. Let's see. Save people from suffering by giving them death, salvation in her eyes. I don't think the Death Devil is necessarily the crazy one here, even though she looks very unhinged. Because Asa came to the same conclusion that whatever Yoru's planning is worse than death. And even if they beat the Death Devil, that's not going to solve the problem. So I think if we can hear what the Death Devil wants to say, she might make a lot of sense. But yeah, let's see. But overall, I do really like this chapter. I think the prison imagery here is excellent from Fujimoto. I don't know if this is intentional, but I do like this callback a lot too. If it's intentional by Fujimoto, excellent. If it's not, happy coincidence. Maybe he just really like character kneeling poses during important moments. Or not kneeling. They're not kneeling. They're sitting on their hands on knees. I don't know what this pose is called. They're sitting on the ground with their hands on their knees. But yeah, that's about all I got. But yeah, let me quickly go over the chapter to see if there's anything else I can talk about. Well, I guess we can maybe go over the other possibility of the Death Devil being here to save humanity from herself, if that's the case. I don't think that's the case, but if it is, she could be. I guess maybe this is like a weaker version of her, and then by the time the day of the prophecy comes, she will turn into a more intimidating version of herself, because she is the king of terror, as referred to by the other devils. She is supposedly the most terrifying devil, and right now she doesn't appear to be such. So there's a possibility that by the time the end comes, she will grow into a far more terrifying version of herself. It's like Persona 3 in a way. I don't know how many of you played that, but that's probably not the case, I don't think, because there's hasn't been talked about in a bit, but it is said that devils that are more human-like in appearance are friendlier towards humans. And so far, all of the horseman devils are human in appearance, except for Yoru. Because remember, Yoru showed up as a bird. She's a owl that fused herself to Asa's dying corpse. So she's the only one of the horsemen that didn't show up as a human being. Her default form is a bird, so that could mean that she has more malicious feelings, malicious intent towards humanity. Let's see. Yeah, but that's about all I got for now. Um, let's see if I have any other comments for the night. Otherwise, we can just call it a day. Looks like that's about all we got for now. Yeah, so that's it's about it. Next chapter comes out next week. I guess we can see